Okay, let me come back around. I sixed that. Evil Nutcracker, can you guys hear me? Did I fix the sound? Hello, hello. Is there anybody out there? Can anybody hear me? I'm not sure, you guys. Ah, we can hear you now. Okay, cool. Apparently, didn't have a mic enabled. Hi, Cole. Hi, Crockett. Hey, Earl. Lori, Jamie. Sounds good. Okay, you guys. Oh, I got other programs opening. I just wanted to get together and just have an all out, like, wild forum here where we talk. So much is going on with this case, and a lot of it takes us, well, almost all of it is taking us to Kuss Road. And I got to thinking, hi, Cole. Big delay, Lynette. Sorry about that. Hey, Leo. Okay, let me come back around. Oh, yeah, there is a big delay. Holy cow. Okay, hold on. Let's get the sound off. Whew, it's getting feedback. So, yeah, I just wanted to talk a little bit about suspects and what you guys are thinking and some of the thoughts I've had. I've seen a lot of Twitter stuff. All of this Kuss Road information, including these 644 State Patrol photos, all of this is really kind of calling out that Kuss Road was the real crime site, like where it took place. Her phone went dead right within 13 minutes of leaving Avery's, if we have that timeline right. So we don't have a huge area she could have went to. So, hey, Gloria. I was thinking about some things, and, there's always little things that hang up in our mind, and we cling to them because we know there's something there. And one thing is that Blaine has always said that he saw Bobby, 100% sure it was his brother Bobby, driving a Ford Green Ranger truck. Now, that would mean that Bobby would have left, because Blaine said he was on the school bus when he saw him going the other way. That would actually mean that when them kids got off that bus, Bobby was already gone. And it would also mean that Bobby had somebody else's truck. Who drives a Ford Green Ranger at that time? Hey, Janie. I mean, really, honestly, who do we know that drives a green Ford Ranger? Whose truck is it that Bobby most likely has? Are you guys thinking what I'm thinking? Scott Tadych. So if the eyewitness saw Scott Tadych's truck at the Dassey residence around noon, you got it, Crockett, Scott. So if the eyewitness saw Scott Tadych's truck at the Dassey residence at noon, and Blaine sees Bobby driving a green Ford Ranger, if you add that together, is it possible that Bobby actually was the one that left at noon and Scott Tadych stayed behind? So if Scott Tadych's truck left at noon and very shortly, a few hours later, Bobby's seen driving it, is it possible that actually Bobby was the one that left at noon in Scott Tadych's truck? Which would mean that it would have been Scott Tadych if we're following that theory, that timeline. It would have been Scott Tadych that would have been in Bobby's truck. And if Scott Tadych's truck, or Bobby's truck, was seen as Teresa arrived, but then Stephen lays the magazine down in the house, comes out the other door, and Bobby's truck is gone. If that's really Scott Tadych looking through that window, then Scott Tadych would have had to have jumped in Bobby's truck and followed her. And I think we all know where they're going. It sounds like they're going to Kuss Road. Now, this is all in theory. It's speculation. But we have to put the stake in it somewhere here and say, wait a minute, we got to figure this out. And what's not speculation is that Bobby was seen driving a green Ford Ranger, and we do know how he would have got a green Ford Ranger would have very easily been to borrow Scott's truck. So if they've done this flip-flop, this switching of vehicles, maybe Bobby said he had stuff to do, but he wanted his truck photographed, whatever the excuse is, Scott Tadych would have also been the one at that house when that call supposedly came in from Teresa. Now, also, what comes to mind is if this really took place the way I'm thinking it did, let's say they switch places and Scott's in Bobby's truck, wouldn't that make a big problem? Let's say that you and your neighbor borrow each other's vehicle for whatever occasion. Maybe you're going to go do something and you need a truck. He has a truck. You only have a car. And when he brings back your vehicle to return it, he informs you he has murdered someone while in your truck. That puts a big problem, as now you have become a suspect in a murder where you weren't even there because your truck may have been seen involved in a crime. The truck may have left tire tracks, anything. I mean, it puts you in a big problem. But even more so, Scott Tadych tried to sell one of the Dassey boys' guns at work. So what if while Scott Tadych is sitting in the house there, waiting for her to arrive, hypothetically, what if he went and grabbed that 22, the high velocity 22 that he wanted to sell? What if he used Bobby's gun and Bobby's truck to fulfill his obligation, if you get my drift? That would really put Bobby in a bind, because all of a sudden his fingerprints are going to be all over his gun prior to any murder. His vehicle would appear in it. And what's worse is if this were all true, it wouldn't be Bobby's dark web searches. It would be Scott Tadych's in this case. And when you look at those searches, it's interesting. It's almost like it's a laundry day kind of thing. We're supposed to be dealing with somebody that is very depraved, that seems to be obsessed, where there's thousands and thousands of searches, but we have several days missed. And like repetitively, you'll see like Tuesdays on the list and Thursdays on the list. And it really bothers me because it almost feels like it's somebody that's coming over. Well, I have to say this is one time where I feel I disagree with Mrs. Zoner. And that is that it's not only Bobby that would have access to that computer. I do feel Scott Tadych would also have access to it, because according to Brian, he had expressed some extreme disappointment in Barb because he said his mother was seeing Scott Tadych back in August already, when she was still with Tom Yonda. So that would put Scott entering the situation the world there, right when this weird, dark searches, these terrible, depraved searches start coming up. And what if Nigga life words that were used on that computer, the name was actually not Bobby or Brendan or Blaine or Brian, but what if it was Scott Tadych? Now, interesting enough, Scott Tadych's trailer got pulled away. Well, let's back up. On the 6th, the day before Kuss Road, the 7th was Kuss Road, the day before, Link. Now, keep in mind, anytime Link's involved, there's always questions. So, Link goes and marks Scott Tadych's trailer as abandoned and has it towed away. He has it towed away to a completely different county where it's been said that it was burnt to the ground. Bobby's truck later is crushed. Yeah, a nice truck is crushed. Let's see what we've got over here. Mike and Blair. Welcome to a live. Suspects on Kuss Road. That's what I call a good night. Yeah, we're going to talk about a lot of different people on Kuss Road tonight. Jamie Van, forgive me if I say it wrong, Van Hoot. Bobby had to get the roadkill that day. Oh, yeah. Huh. You have to wonder if Bobby wasn't part of it until it was already over. If your neighbor came back and was like, okay, I just used your gun and I murdered somebody and I just used your truck, and so they're going to think you were the killer, you're pretty much now blackmailed into whatever it is to clean it up, I would guess. I mean, if you turn yourself in, you're going down for this murder. So you have to kind of wonder, was Bobby also a victim in this whole thing? Was it their goal to make all the Averys basically blackmailed into playing against each other? So you've got Earl and Chucky, too. Okay, you guys, do you want to stay on Scott and talk about Scott for a little bit more? Hey, Martha Dickinson, how are you? Good to see you. Lynette says, and Barbara says Bobby is very moody. Well, yeah. Earl Phillips says, right, roadkill deer don't want a bloody deer in a blazer. Yeah. Mike and Blair. Oh, and if you hear her snoring, it's my pug. I'm sorry. She's like, when I started doing videos, I would let the pug sleep in my lap and I would read, and I didn't realize she was being recorded. And I started getting messages and posts from people concerned that maybe I needed a CPAP at night, or my husband did. And I'm like, oh my God, it's my pug. I'm so sorry. So you may hear her. She's snoring on the bed by me. Truck crushed and trailer taken and burned. Wow, this case is insanity. Oh, Mike and Blair, you have got a lot of stuff that is going to make you say, what the heck? Oh, yeah. Jamie thinks it was a couple on Kuss Road. Interesting. Yes, it could. That's right, Gloria. She asked, could this case get any crazier? Jamie's talking. She says that porn shot gone wrong. You know, what if Scott Tadych was, blackmail seems to be the game. So what could they have that would have blackmailed Scott to facilitate this crime? It had to have been somebody that was able to know the minute that the victim left that property and already know where she's headed, like set it up, and what's got to catch it later. Oh, okay, Crockett, sounds good. Yeah, Martha, we can jump to that. So it was interesting with that gun. So what happened with the gun was that Scott Tadych started, at work there was quite a few interviews of coworkers and supervisors and stuff like that in HR on Scott. And one thing synonymous was that every single witness or person questioned reported that Scott always knew everything in the case and shared it all the day before even the news heard about it. Now, that keeping him in the know, he decides at some point to sell one of the Dassey boys' gun. And he gets it ready and he brings it to work. Yes, Ashira, good to see you. He brings the gun to work, has it out in his vehicle, and he's made contact with a guy that wants to buy the gun. And he kind of hints to the guy, hey, you want to look at the gun? And the guy just out of the blue says, no, I can't look at the gun till Saturday. All right? Which was a few days away. Well, this must have spooked Tadych, because the guy is there at work, the gun's in the parking lot, but the guy doesn't want to go out and look at it till another day. Well, what had happened is the guy had called and reported that this gun, that Scott Tadych was trying to sell a gun. So here comes who? Fassbender and Wiegert to check it out. Well, sure enough, on the day that this guy decides to look at the gun on Saturday, all of a sudden Scott, he's changed his tune. Oh, we're no longer going to sell the gun, blah, blah, blah. No, I don't have it with me, and it's just kind of brushed away. So the gun was never sold. But Scott did attempt to. Maya, do you have to do that while I'm on live? I know your leg itches, but my dog's like, as she's itching her leg. I'm like, quit. Okay, you guys. Let's see. What road did zippers live on? I can't think of it right offhand. I do know it, but I'm not sure. Maybe somebody in the crowd can help. Cole says, I think it was BOD. I've always thought to myself that KZ has more knowledge that Bobby did it than what has been released. Well, that's, a very good possibility. Lori Priddle says, how can an officer just walk in and decide to move someone's trailer? Wouldn't he need Scott's okay? Yeah, I don't know, Lori. He marked it abandoned. So maybe it wasn't legally supposed to be there, which is, a whole nother rabbit hole. Larry Bryant says, I always thought it was Bobby too, until I heard all the stuff about Ellie bribing people with drug charges and whatnot. Yeah, Larry, me too. One of the problems I have with this case is timing. So if you look at the timing in this case, you keep hearing it. We have a deposition going down in a matter of like 3 days. It's a big one. It's Kusurek. It's Vogel. This is King of the Hill of Manitowoc cops. Kusurek, unlike Peterson, who was sheriff for 6 years, Herman, who's been sheriff for maybe 14, something like that, 13. Kusurek was sheriff for like 25, 30 years. Now, Kusurek was not someone that I would want to mess with. He shot his brother in the head. The brother didn't press charges. Yes, the brother lived. There was all kinds of rumors of what was going on in Kusurek's for home life, I should say, with his family, of abuse and all kinds of horrible, horrible stories. Now, this guy comes forward. He ends up dead. When he came forward and did all kinds of emails about the Kusurek family, he ends up dead. There was some sort of a story where an accountant ends up, I can't remember that story. I don't want to quote it wrong, but somebody ends up in Manitowoc on the wrong side of Manitowoc County and ends up, quote unquote, committing suicide by like drinking poison in their soda or something. It's absolutely, it's like a mafia mindset. So for me, with all of that known, and we're down to the wire. If you're wanting to frame this individual, the suspect, you've got 3 days left to pull it off. How coincidental is it that you happen to have a psychotic killer that just happens to be 19 years old, never displayed anything in his youth at all that said he was a psycho, no previous charges whatsoever. He just snaps all of a sudden, and his first kill happens to be perfect for your frame job. I personally can't go there. I feel like, in my personal humble view, the timing sets the stage, and that's what you have is a stage. In all these events, we have stage after stage after stage. It all appears as if it was planned or premeditated. In that situation, how would you possibly trigger somebody that's so depraved to tame them enough and control them enough that they just happen at that moment to snap and take their first victim? It's too much risk. It just doesn't, in my mind, it just doesn't logically fit up. What would fit up is if, like, Kuss or some of these guys, like, if they suspicious, they're just, what if Ellie hired someone, like the old Ellie, the boys club hired someone, maybe a Tadych. And the way I say that is, you look back, Deb Sakawati, which was Carmen Botwell's aunt, she was killed right near the same location as we're finding pelvic bones, which is the quarry there. Her head was bashed in. She was a waitress. This guy that went down for it was set up just like Stephen Avery. And who was Deb Sakawati seeing at the time? Tom Tadych. Now, who knows if they're related, but it's a small community, and, point to 2 people in that community and tell me they're not related. I will not believe you at this point. I'm just saying. Okay, let's go ahead and read some more comments. Larry Bryant said, I always thought it was Bobby too until I heard stuff about Ellie bribing people. Yep, we read that one. Okay. Lynette Wilson, not her Rav, Carmen's bones in the pit. TH on Kuss. Yeah, okay, so let's go there for a minute. So more and more people are adamant this is not her Rav. And I got to thinking about that. So let's just play this out. Let's say Scott Tadych tells Bobby initially, hey, you want your truck photographed by that girl? I'm not doing anything. I'm just sitting here doing laundry. Just, you know what? Leave your truck. Take my truck over to wherever you're going. Mike wherever you're going. I'll make sure it gets photographed and in the paper and stuff. And then when Bobby leaves with Scott Tadych's truck, hypothetically then, Scott Tadych grabs Bobby's gun, grabs Bobby's truck. He's already set it up through some sort of call to her, letting her know that he wants something photographed, whatever. Gets her down on the road down there at Kuss. Just shoots out the window. Shoots her right through the whole damn thing. Putting a hole through the passenger side with his gun. Maybe it ricocheted, cracked that front window or whatever. There was 2 shots to the skull, so I'm guessing we've got the back of the head as the person fell forward. Maybe the door got opened, and so forth. Now, the car's got to get off the road. So what if he basically just shoves her in wherever, pushes her over, and just shoves his car off into the wooded area there? Deposits her body on the ground, covers her up with some light dirt, and then takes that car and in the cover of night puts it out there on 147. Now, if that would have happened, then it would explain the holes in the windshield and so forth. And if Colburn found it and Kuss's the one, or law enforcement allegedly hired a hitman, all in theory, of course, then they would know that when they found this vehicle on 147, that the deal was done. They would get rid of that car completely, because it would point to the wrong person. It would not accomplish what they want, which is to frame Stephen and so forth. That would mean, if we're going on this theory, Colburn could not be in the know because he called it in and then it got hushed. So that was a big Gilligan move on Colburn's part, possibly. So maybe Colburn's the patsy at this point, who knows? But they get rid of that Rav. Now they know the game is on, that the body's planted somewhere near that area, and that they've got to get a backup vehicle that doesn't show Scott Tadych as the killer, all in theory, of course. So then they would plant a different Rav. Okay, let's go back up and see what everybody's saying. There is quite a delay, so forgive me. Oh, Lynette says vinyl not the same, or VIN not the same. Gotcha. Yeah. So TikTok Manitowoc had put on Twitter a picture of the VIN number, and it's up under a metal part, and you can't see the first 4 digits. You can only see 13 of them. However, only the last 4 matched the reported VIN for Teresa. So, sneaky. The problem is those other numbers and letters are quite different than the ones reported on Teresa's vehicle. Last 4 digits match. Earl says, think BOD did catch up with TH, as Zellner says, but he left her for dead. But 3 days later, a homeowner on Kuss Road says TH knocked on his door. Yeah, Leo was supposedly the gentleman that reported that Teresa, a woman, knocked on his door that he said looked like Teresa, and that she was trying to find an address. What address was she trying to find? You know? Certainly, if he was so struck by the fact that this woman was at the door, he would remember where she was looking. I mean, it is a local area. It's his block. Would it be 3 neighbors down? What is the address that she was supposedly looking for? Hey, Anthony, how are you? From Minnesota. Good to see you. Just joined the show. Welcome to the RD channel. And then Jack Anderson says, but the number plate you see shows in court, there are no 4 holes in it. Really? I'm going to have to check that, you guys. So should you. So Jack is saying that the license plate that they're showing in the court, there are not 4 holes in it. Interesting. I've never noticed that, because the one that I looked at, the front plate, which doesn't have the sticker on it, in Wisconsin, you get a sticker that has the year on it that your car will expire, or your plate will expire on the car. That goes on the back of the vehicle. It's required by state law to be on the back. Whereas the front license plate doesn't have a sticker. So when I was showing in yesterday's news program the 4 bolt holes, that's no big deal. The problem is the 2 bottom bolts show actual rusty heads of the bolts where it's rubbed the plate to the point the paint is moving and there's rust there, implying that this vehicle, or this license plate I should say, would have been bolted to the undercarriage at least of a vehicle. But when you get on the RAV that we have, there's no way to attach it. There's nothing there. So interesting to me. Cole Martinez says, I've wondered why KZ can't get access to TH's car. I don't think anybody's going to have access to TH's car. I think the only access you would get is to the blue RAV. Larry Bryant says, couldn't you attach a plate with only 2 bolts? Absolutely, Larry. That's not what I'm saying, dear. I'm saying that the license plate that is being shown in evidence has 4 bolt marks. So when you put a bolt on and it's rusty, it leaves a ring where the bolt wore. and patina from metal to metal oxidation. So you can see if the hole was used or not. And that front plate has rust lining that ring all the way around it where that bolt head rubbed on that plate, showing that that was attached on the bottom of the plate. Yet there's no place on the RAV4 to have attached it. So that's the problem. All right, let's scroll back up and see what we got. Hey, Philippine Life, how are ya? Good to see ya and welcome to Live. Hey, Linda, missed you so much. Good to see you. Slayer Rock, hey, good to see you. Queensland, Australia, that's awesome. That is totally awesome. Gina Swan says, I am not colorblind, but RAV4 on ASY is blue and not dark green as reported by your mother. Right. Absolutely. Lulu, hey. Gotta love Lulu. Jamie says, hold on, let me let my puppy out. Okay. Is that what you're wanting? Out? She knows when I do a live, so she cries. Come on up. She's got to sit in my lap. And then you guys hear her snore. Okay, let's see. Jamie says, Manitowoc County Coroner probably knows Carmen's body wasn't a full cremation. Carmen's remains left the funeral home in 4 separate boxes. Well, I know that Carmen Botwell's family was given back her remains in separate containers. So that's a big problem for me. Hey, Lynette, how are ya? Lisa says, I'm not sure how much we can get from VinPix. Law enforcement is in possession of both vehicles, if there's more than one, and all VinPix are close-up. Plates were probably transferred from another car. Yeah, but it was supposed to be her first car, Jamie, remember? They made this whole big deal about how that was Teresa's first car, and she got it from auction, and Mom and Dad helped her. So if it's her first car, then the plates couldn't have been transferred from another vehicle. So what it means to me is those plates were attached to a different vehicle to cause that patina from the rust on the bolts. Marlene Nowland, hi, Central Coast, Australia. Good to see you. Oh yeah, we've got some good group here tonight. Yeah, so let's talk more on suspects. So we've talked about Scott Tadych pretty good. We'll talk a few more things about him, and then we'll move on to a different suspect. So Scott Tadych did not show up for work that night. He works graveyard and aluminum smelter. He didn't even show up for work, and didn't have an excuse either. No notification that he wasn't coming. He just didn't show up for work. What are the chances? Really, I mean, of all nights to not even have an alibi, have no excuse, and you just don't go into work. And Bobby is late for work. So that's a big deal. Hey, Mary Jo. Mary Jo says, seems like TTM, TikTok Manitowoc, pick of the VIN is chassis part number or engine part number. Well, that makes sense. Well, I knew it was 4 digits short because I could see that blurred area, even though it's to the right, didn't even have like markings. So that's probably what that is a chassis number part. And it's interesting because they do use the 3044, which is the ending number, I believe, the last 4 digits, that, or 3004, something like that. Those matched. It was the rest of it didn't even come close to the VIN number, and it was 4 digits short. So it bothered me because a VIN number is always 17 digits long in, at least in the United States. Lori Priddle says, since when does the police department determine to have someone cremated? Carmen Botwell. This just gets weirder and weirder. Yeah, so on Carmen Botwell, the thing is I don't want people to forget, the last time that Carmen Botwell was seen alive was October 31st in the day. How is it that Teresa disappeared and Carmen disappeared at the, or just was never seen again, I should say, ever again, at the exact same time frame? And then when you go 3 days later on the 3rd of November, 8:30 in the morning, Carmen Botwell's supposed to be in court. At that moment, she has a court date for 8:30 that morning, is the exact moment she's pronounced dead in her home. The law officials do not even have any information as to what truly has killed this woman, because no toxicology reports even thought of being done. The body hasn't been collected, right? So where do they get off telling the family that it's an overdose? How could they possibly know that? It could have been allergic reaction to something she ate that killed her. Cut off her airway. They have no way to know that. So it's pretty presumptuous of Remacher to tell the family that it's an overdose, and to solve this would be like a needle in a haystack. If you just got done telling the mother of a victim that's dead that your daughter overdosed, don't you think saying it's like a needle in a haystack's pretty uncouth? I mean, really. All right, let's see. Hey, Ronald, how are you, hon? Jack Anderson says you can see it here in this clip. Make a Believer Part 1, evidence missed about when Teresa went missing and when they found the RAV4, 7 minutes in the description clip. So that's by Mir. A newer YouTuber talked about her or him yesterday. They've got 2 videos out right now, and Making a Believer, and wow, I want to tell you, I enjoyed them thoroughly. Philippines says Carmen was cremated in the crematory that is owned by the arresting officer of Avery in 1985. That's correct. That would be Bushman. So Bushman was canine unit and had his dog Duke, was guarding the perimeter in 1985 when they arrested Steve Avery, and then followed, I think it was Peterson, or it could have been Kasurik, whichever was, taking Stephen back. And then Bushman comes out of retirement. So not only is Carmen Botwell cremated at Bushman's wife funeral home. So his wife owns the Pfeiffer Funeral Home. That's where Carmen Botwell was cremated. And the police are the ones that guided that decision very firmly. Yep, we're going to cremate her here. So they had that picked. Now, Bushman, he's all, right there you've got suspicion, because Carmen Botwell is being cremated at that exact place that Bushman's family owns. Now, even more disturbing, or more weirder, how much weirder could this case get? Bushman then comes out of retirement. Now, some people want to call him say he's on reserve. According to the case, though, he was fully retired. He comes out of retirement. Talk about conflict of interest, right? They can't let the coroner come on because she's conflict of interest, because Manitowoc County's being sued by Stephen Avery, and so they can't have the Manitowoc coroner. Okay, fine. All right, get a different coroner. But no, we have Glazer come on the scene from Calumet, and he's a medical examiner, but he doesn't get there till much, much later. Anyway, so Bushman comes out of retirement, and lo and behold, his A-team, quote-unquote A-team, found the burial site, the shallow grave on Kuss Road. Jamie writes, and Andy Colburn was the only one to ask if it was Teresa and not Carmen when he called Manitowoc County Dispatch. Yeah, it always, I know a lot of people are like, Colburn, that snake in the grass. I almost think that Colburn was out of the loop and just absolutely dumbfounded by most of it. And with him running for sheriff, he probably was buying into this whole thing, hook, line, and sinker, and trying to play the hero and find all the evidence and take all the pictures and links the bad guy probably. And this is all just my own theory, of course. I'm just talking major speculation. Just a little scenario here. But what if Link is the one that's like, patting the path there where the bones are found and everything with Bushman, and you got Colburn. Okay, boss, sounds good. Yeah. I'm just saying it could be why Colburn called in those plates, and then everybody was like, "What the heck are you doing?" But then you've got Colburn calling in on the Spanish lines, so that's not cool either. Was he hoping that nobody'd think to check the Spanish line on the dispatcher's calls? Don't know. All right, let's see. Cherie 13608, are you thinking the plates weren't TH's or they were hers, but her RAV must have had the 4 bolts? Yeah, I'm thinking they were hers. I personally think those are her plates, and I think they registered to a dark green RAV, which is not what we had, and that would explain why the plates are off. They can't reapply the plates because obviously you're going to see new tooling on those screws as you bolt them to a car. So I'm thinking we're looking at a salvaged RAV, and I'm thinking Herman or somebody like that, just my personal opinion, somebody took that RAV over to Cleveland or something like that. Uh-oh, am I here? Am I being heard? Because Kelly says I don't hear anything, so I'm not sure. Okay, let's jump back up. Let's see what we got. Moses call. I thought police officer said Scott got called home early. Scott left one day, Mose. So here's the Scott left work early one day. So a phone call came in of a distressed individual, and the HR worker or receptionist said it sounded to them like it was an excited, I think she said freaked out teenager. Whatever it was, or whoever it was, I should say, Scott Tadych then responded, according to several reports, and he became absolutely panicked, and he was frantic and said he had to leave right away. And his explanation, key this up, you guys, keep this real important. Like I said, there's some things you don't want to let go of. Scott said that there was blood on some of the Dassey clothes that had gotten mixed in with his, and he left work immediately. Huh. What do you want to bet that wasn't Dassey Boy's bloody clothes? However, Scott, he's not only missing time, which, if you weren't doing something you shouldn't be, you should be able to give an account for your time. And he didn't. He said he was visiting his mother, who had back surgery in the Green Bay hospital. And Zellner has outright said that is a lie. Then you've got Bobby and Scott Tadych waving at each other as they pass each other to go hunting. And we can honestly say that that's probably been impeached by the fact that Blaine is saying that Bobby, at that exact time, is actually being seen by Blaine in Scott Tadych's truck, passing the school bus. So you can't have it both ways. Bobby can't be driving past, waving at Scott Tadych very well if he's in Scott Tadych's truck and he's driving past Blaine. All right, let's keep going here. All right. Ashira asks, is it true that T.H., Teresa Halbach, called Scott Tadych home the day of the 31st? I came across this about 2 weeks ago. All right, you guys, I'm going to take you down a little beaten path here. Now, a lot of this is hearsay right now. Some people claim they can prove it. I'm still waiting on some paperwork to prove it. But that number that is the Dassey landline, which ends in 8715, those are the 4 digits of that. All right. Supposedly, now dig as deep as you can on this. I've been working 2 jobs. I'm switching jobs, honestly, and I'm going to be working some mighty big hours coming up. So I might not have time to dig fully into this. But here's the deal. Supposedly, that was Scott Tadych's original phone number. Now, Richard Boyd has brought this up, and I know a lot of people don't always understand everything he's saying, but I think he actually points out some good points. I know he gets upset when I talk about him and such, but I think he has a lot of passion. We'll say that. All right, so I've also heard this from other individuals, that the original phone number was 8715, or the last 4 digits. That's the landline of the Dasseys now. Supposedly, before the 31st, it was actually Scott Tadych's, and when he moved in with Barb, he had it switched over. So what makes it interesting is the van was booked with Auto Trader with that phone number. Barb's van was booked using that phone number. It makes you wonder on this call that's missing from the zippers. Like, you know, supposedly Teresa called the zippers and she was like, I can't find you. I need you to call me back. I'm lost, blah, blah, blah. That message got recorded by by law enforcement and disappeared right out of evidence. Zillner says that. But then we have this bizarre message over on the Dassey phone machine, supposedly. Now, how hard would it be if you're Scott Tadych and that came in on your answer machine to simply call up the Dassey resident's phone, right? Get that answering machine to play using maybe Bobby's phone. And then when it goes to record, simply push play on your own message that you have on your phone. You've just transferred the victim's last voice message ever to have ever been made onto somebody else's phone line. And if Scott Tadych really did borrow Bobby's truck, which got crushed, and use Bobby's gun, now you've also got the victim leaving a message appearing as though it was called to the Dassey residence. So, all right, let's see. Where else are we? Carmen was a oh, it just jumped. I lost that one. We'll go back up. I lost my place, guys. Okay. Philippine Life says Carmen was a relative of Karen Halbach, so it is no surprise that some of the DNA markers that they did retrieve match Teresa. Now, honestly, Carmen was a relative of Richard Halbach, the father. She's cousins by marriage only. So I don't know there would be a DNA match. I'm not real sure. But how hard is it to switch stuff up? I mean, we're swapping for this and that. I think they're switching up. Bobby switched vehicles with Scott Tadych, I think. That's why Blaine's saying he sees his brother driving what it sounds like to me is Scott Tadych's truck. And I think they switched vehicles after her murder, where they got rid of the real Rav and they put a different Rav to avoid the actual crime scene where she had been shot in the head right there in the driver's seat. I think that's why we have the hole in the windows and all that. I think he didn't want to get his hands dirty and just shot her right through the windows. I don't even think she got out of her vehicle. That's just my thought, though. That's only my thought. There's the disclaimer. But Is it possible that somehow Carmen was on Kuss Road looking for a different address? I don't know. Could the guy have mistaken Carmen? I doubt it, because as much as a lot of people think they favored, I used to as well too. Turns out when I've listened to real close family friends, they're like, no, Carmen did not look anything like Teresa by that point. So I'm not sure. Slayer Rocks, did you get a chance to check the link about Ricky Hotchletter case concentrating on Sheriff Herman and the nepotism that radiates from there? The name in that cover-up will be very familiar. You know, Slayer Rocks, you had said you were going to email me, I thought, and I didn't see it. I looked for it. I'm actually waiting. The nepotism, yeah. I started getting hung up on this word about 2 weeks ago, and I'm stuck on the word nepotism and Manitowoc County and Calumet. Oh, yeah. I'm going to look for that, Slayer Rocks, if you'd be kind enough to send me that link again. I don't know where it went or how I lost it, but I was actually watching for that. Larry Bryant says maybe Carmen knocked on the door, just throwing it out there. Yeah, you know, that could have happened too. Kelly says she can't hear me. I'm not sure why. Mo's call says, can any confirm if Mike Halbach visited the Dassey family when they were young, just because I want to know if a theory is true? I know this has been asked over the years several times. There's a rumor that Ryan Hillegas used to hang out with Brian Dassey and they'd play in the junkyard. But it's hearsay, so... Oh, there. Good, Kelly. Yep. Earl's right. Robert Herman and Todd Herman own Cleveland Auto Salvage. Let's see what else we got here. Yeah, Martha Dickinson said something that has always bothered me. She says, I was thinking today, I'm not sure BD, and that'd be Brendan Dassey, would be safe at home with SD, Scott Tadych, as a stepdaddy. I think she meant Scott Tadych. She put SD. Yeah, you know, I mean, who really was it that threatened to stab Brendan in the stomach if he said anything? If Scott Tadych was, in theory, in speculation, if Scott Tadych was my main suspect, if he was, it would be concerning to think of how really that would affect the family dynamics if all of them knew that Scott Tadych had done this. So if Barb knew and didn't know what to do because she's hostage, what if Bobby knew but couldn't say anything because it's his truck, his gun, the message was left on his phone, the dark porn was on his computer, and maybe Barb's like, oh my God, they're good, you know, it would really mess with the family dynamics on a level. Talk about, you know, sleeping with the enemy. Holy crap. Okay, let's see here. Kelly Merritt says, Moses Cult, I think that is on Reddit. Ah, interesting. Ashira says, too many coincidences with this whole case, and Ellie don't believe in coincidences. Nailed that. Yep. You know, that's true. Law enforcement doesn't believe in any coincidences. And they don't believe in excuses. So why do we always say, oh, that's probably a typo, you know? Or we have to say, oh, coincidences. I don't think so. I don't think there are coincidences in this case. I think each time, you know, when I first started looking at this case real seriously, I started thinking to myself, it's the evidence that we don't see that's important. And that was because we didn't have a lot of evidence. Now, it still rings true, but in a different way. The evidence we don't see is important, and that's the evidence that's been destroyed. So it's still the evidence that we don't see. And when you have the identity of the victim actually in question, when you have the actual death of the victim in question, whether they're dead or not, is there enough blood to warrant or enough proof that this person is dead? When you have no evidence at all against Brendan Dassey, nothing, zero, nada, zip, nilch. I don't know how to, make that any clearer. And then with Stephen, you start knocking off the evidence left and right. The bullet doesn't even have her blood or bone on it. So what'd she do? Pee on the bullet or spit on the bullet? I don't think so. Neither one is going to kill her. You look at the blood, Teresa's blood. Where's the victim's blood at? She's dead. Where's the crime scene where her blood is? Is it in the real RAV that got burnt or smelted or whatever? And when you look at the Sikigi note, how do we know the body got burnt up on Friday morn in aluminum, or the body was burnt in aluminum smelter on Friday morning 3 a.m.? How do we know that's a body? What if it's a body of the car? What if it's the RAV4? Teresa Halbach's RAV4 was smelted in aluminum smelter. And what if the Sikiki letter is actually more or less not, how do I put it? Key go ahead, to plant the RAV or whatever. Maybe that note came through as soon as that RAV was done. That note got passed off to somebody like Colburn or Link, so they knew that was done, and then they could put the other RAV out there. All right, let's see. Oh, there's so many. I'm trying to read them. Okay, where were we? Haha, Lulu wrote boobies. I'm assuming boobies. She meant Bobby. Marilyn Nelwan. Why would you ring someone and tell them clothes were mixed? What's the problem? Why was ST so worried he has to leave work? Yeah. And I wonder, is that when they found Brendan made Brendan Dassey go in and get pants? No, because Brendan went there by himself. He confirmed to law enforcement, nope, nobody was home. And they kept saying, you sure nobody's home? Nobody's there. Where's Bobby? Blah, 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 blah. You sure there's nobody at your house? And you're giving us permission to go in and get those pants. Yeah, playing off of that to get into the home. Then you got Wiegert hanging around outside claiming he has to make a phone call. The voice recorder's going the whole time. It recorded every time he was on the phone before, but there's no record of him making a phone call. So he was either planting something, in my opinion, or picking something up. I do know he makes a beeline to Remacher back at Manitowoc. What's interesting is Remacher is evidence custodian at that time for Manitowoc County. Interesting. Okay. Marilyn said that. Okay, Philippine Life. Bobby's cell records show he was in the vicinity of Teresa's last cell record. I have a hard time with all these cell pings, you guys, because of the fact that in 2005, the towers basically could overlap each other. You could be bouncing off of two different towers. You'd lose signal a lot. It was a very volatile system, so there really isn't a way for me personally to lock in and say exactly what tower she pinged off of, even though I have dug into it enough to understand what they're saying, unless you were to triangulate it. And what I mean is that she didn't appear on any of the other towers and only this one. And then she switched towers and went to this one and so forth. And it was in a chronological way to where she was just going in a straight line, one direction, and you could just see the cell towers basically light up as she went. That's the only way I would trust them. When they're circling around her, it literally could be you could go out 2 houses down and switch over to a different and then go back. I can't trust the cell pings in 2005 for me. I don't think they had the technology quite figured out. But that's just my personal opinion. There are those that absolutely can't believe that can get down to a science. I just haven't quite seen where it's as reliable as a lot of people want it to be. Gina Swan says, I think ST married Barb because she knows what happened to TH. She can't testify against him. I'm with you, Gina. I'm with you. She goes on to say that's why he told Stephen he ruined his life. Yeah. Oh, that had to make Barb feel really great, didn't it? Martha Dickinson says, RD, this case is about to get busted wide open. I can feel someone is about to cave. I hope the dam bursts and we all are dancing in the streets. Oh, me too. I'm exhausted, to be honest. I think about this case way too much. I could be at work doing 1,000 different things, and honestly, what goes through my head is a lot of this case behind the scenes. So, Marilyn Noland says, YouTube is playing up. RD keeps cutting out. Millbilly's having problems with sound. Yeah, YouTube. YouTube. I don't want to get into too much on COPPA, but YouTube's playing around. They got themselves in a $170 million lawsuit and lost because they basically were collecting the data on minors that were under 13 years of age knowingly, and that data was being marketed. And so now we have a big deal. So you see my rubber ducky emblem is gone for now. That's because anything, it doesn't even have to be that a child is even inclined to watch your channel. If the Autobot on YouTube picks up that you could be enticing a child to watch your video, but you have decided that it's not fit for children, so you've checked the box, no, not fit for children, which I do, you can get a $42,000 fine per video. And YouTube has basically told anybody that has ever uploaded a video, go ahead and get your lawyer, because that's the only thing you're going to have. I'm looking at deciding if I'm going to stay with YouTube as my platform. I've talked to a lawyer. He said that the FTC, Federal Trade Commission, is actually gone, and I've watched the program myself. The Federal Trade Commission has put out their own videos stating that YouTube is the barrel, and the creators, which is me, Eric Cozy, Linda's listening, Allie Epperson, anybody that, Millbilly, anybody that makes videos on YouTube, we're all called creators by YouTube. So as creators, the Fair Trade Commission said that YouTube is the barrel and the creators are the fish, and we will get caught if we are saying that we are not made for kids, but we are enticing a child to watch our video. They've listed out some serious criteria, and then they've got some very vague criteria that will meet the bot's red flag of our channel, where you could get your $42,000 fine for that video. And one of them happens to be colorful movement. Another one is toys or icons that relate to toys. And so December 10th, by then, YouTube says we have to have all our videos marked as per if it's made for a child or if it's not made for a child. I'm actually going to be doing a big video on all this. A lot of us need to be very, very careful, and you're going to see much of the child programming that is now online that is made for kids will disappear because they're dead in the water. YouTube has already said that if you do check the box that you are made for kids, that basically nobody will be notified of your video. Nobody can comment. You can't save the video. They basically just took away any benefit to having a channel. There'll be no communication between the creator and the listener and so forth. And no monetization of any kind. So at first I was like, well, why can't I just check a simple box that says, I choose people to have to be restricted. They have to be 18 years or older to watch my channel. Wouldn't that save everything? Yeah, if I do that, I'm in the same boat as if I check it made for kids, which is that you guys will not know I made a video unless you happen to search for the name of that video. I really am confused as to how this is all going to work out. So I'm not sure what the move's going to be, but by January 1st of 2020, basically we're running the risk of losing freedom of speech through the Fair Trade Commission saying that they're protecting children. Unfortunately, it comes from parents that are signing on their account as a legal person saying, I'm over the age of 18, but then handing their phone to their child. Now, as that child watches a whole bunch of kids programs, no longer does YouTube see that woman's account as an adult account. In fact, it'll red flag as a child's account. So when that woman goes on to, let's say Eric Cozy's or my channel, the bot will see her as a child viewing my channel or whoever's channel she's watching, which then causes a red flag, which can get you a $42,000 fine. And they made it clear that you don't ever have to have a child watch your channel in order to get the fine. It can be that you've never had a child view your channel ever, and you'll still get the fine if it fits the criteria that it looks like it would be enticing or appealing to a child. So, enough on that for now. But yeah, YouTube is the whole foundation. A lot of people feel that it is going to be shutting down. I've noticed YouTube has a whole new thing out of videos, and they seem to be doing the sideline thing where you can pick out free movies or you can rent movies, kind of like a Hulu or a Netflix or something like that. And I'm wondering if that's what they're migrating to because of the $170 million fine they just paid. So, okay. Oh, Millbilly's live right now on the Rav. Yeah, he knows that Rav. Oh, between him and me and Eric Cozy and everybody else, we're going to get down to it. Oh, thank you, Slayer Rock. I appreciate it. Okay, let's see what's going on. Hey, Thou, how are you? Good to see. Oh, yeah. Philippine Life says someone posted a video about a bullet hole in the door handle. Obi-Wan Benobi was talking about the fact that we've all seen on the Avery salvage yard that little hole drilled in the handle. And we've had theories that maybe they were trying to figure out how to unlock the RAV, so they drilled a little hole, put a camera down in there, so forth and so on. But the point is, there was a hole drilled in the handle. But when we look at those photographs that supposedly of the RAV, the blue RAV, that's sitting in what everybody else besides myself says is the crime lab, I still say that's Calumet County. And I think it's the maintenance garage. I honestly do. And I don't know if anybody can convince me differently. But we can agree to disagree. I think what Obi-Wan Benobi was saying is that there's no hole in the picture on the handle. So in other words, that picture would have, in theory, had to have been taken prior to the car being on the salvage yard. Interesting. The link was in the comment on Ma'am News. Thank you. Let's see what else we've got. Nothing that in Swedish ingot. Larry Bryant says, recently I thought that someone, or plural to that, knew Teresa would be at Stevens. Even though they have a messy trail, some thought was put into it. Yeah, it very well could be. Mary Jo says, have you heard any more from the Reddit poster who had the gut feeling and knew people who lived on Kuss Road? I haven't personally heard anymore. Nobody has sent me a link. But I do have something very special coming up on the next Altered Crime time, which is about Courtney Skinner. And she's a local that has went through absolute hell. She lost her little baby brother, who's 2 years old when he was murdered, when the children were put in foster care. And at first it was thought to be by rough play, and then later it was deemed by experts to be a homicide and covered up. And so it's very interesting because Courtney has talked with like Kratz and Michael Glazer and Mark Ott and all these Calumet people that we have grown to know the names on. She spoke to Wiegert herself. So this interview is coming up in this next week. And it's heart-wrenching. I've had a really hard time putting it together because I'm very protective of Courtney's feelings, but at the same time, she wants it out there. And it's so heart-wrenching because it does involve a child and the death of a child. But at the same time, we can't turn our head because it's out of our comfort zone. We're going to have to dive in. And if we expect the locals to continue to come forward and share their stories, we have to give them the time to explain it. And remember, not all of the locals have stories that are directly related to Stephen and how the Teresa Halbach case went down. They may have pieces and parts of their own story, like Courtney does, at the same time it was happening with the Teresa Halbach. So where was Pagel when he wasn't over taking care of Teresa Halbach's case? That sheriff from Calumet, Pogel, was actually working with Courtney Skinner in that case on reopening and investigating that case as well. Where was Kratz before he was actually the prosecutor, the state prosecutor? Well, he was Calumet County DA. And so it's all within the exact same time frame of 2005 and 2006 that this case gets reopened with Courtney Skinner, and we have so much to discuss. Okay, let's go ahead and read a few more of these. We're almost at 9 o'clock, so I think we're going to call it good. We'll finish a few more of these. All right. Graham Cox says, part 1, okay, and then we've got a part 2, so I'll jump to part 2 in a second. So part 1, I really think everyone is making this far more complicated than it needs to be. Theory, Ryan knows where she's due to be for her last deployment. He kills her by deer camp. He dumps the body. Part 2, he later uses deer camp barrel to burn her body at the quarry. He returns the barrel to the deer camp. He dumps the RAV4 by the turnabout. Okay. Part 3, the cops want to blame Steve and the RAV4 is moved onto the salvage yard. Part 4, the blood keys, etc. is planted by the cops. And part 5, the deer camp barrel contents are moved onto the salvage yard. Huh. It could be. I personally can't go with a motive that involves an emotional trigger because of the fact that it's timing. But that's just me, my own humble opinion. It is timed out so perfectly. We're 3 days from the depositions, and we're just going to sit by and let the deposition go with Kusurik and let it happen. But you know what? We can all just sit here and hope that perhaps something happens. Oh, wait, a murder happened. I can't do it. I can't. It's kind of like saying that I'm going to buy a lottery ticket. I'm going to go sit outside and wait for the rain and wait for lightning to strike me at the exact moment that my lottery ticket wins. It's just too many expectations. If we're going to stop the deposition and everything that's going to happen, how would we possibly rely on a random event? I personally think they used all these different little emotional motives that could have been construed, if you will, to make every single one of them the prime target. I can see how, like, Ellie would go to Ryan and say, you know, we think you did it. Yep. The only way we're going to not think you did it is if you help us out a little bit, because, you know, otherwise you're the ex-boyfriend. And then go to Earl and say, hey, you hate your brother. You got a lot of hate going on for your brother. You've also accused him of sexually assaulting your own daughter, which you yourself were the one being accused by your own daughter of sexually assaulting her. And your brother just got done serving 18 years in prison. Now you're doing that. So, yeah, about you sexually assaulting your daughter. We can either take you and get you locked up for 18 years of prison, or perhaps you want to move some trees around, doing a little landscaping job or two. That could have been done. And then you go, you know, oh, Bobby Dassey. You know, all those games you were playing on your computer? Well, guess what else we found? We found a whole bunch of naughty stuff on there. And it was either you or Steven. So who was it that did this? Because you're either a suspect or you're our star witness. What's it going to be, Bobby? You know, so for me, I kind of feel like the Avery family has been through hell, and they've been played against each other, almost to the point that it's just obscene. And so for me, I really think it points to not coincidence, but timing that was prearranged. And that I can't shake that personally. But you absolutely, I have respect for those that do feel that it was one of the other people. All right, let's see. Let's jump down. Thank you, Gina. She says she loves listening to me. I talk too much as it is, so you're probably one person that enjoys it. Jack Anderson says, after Google took over, YouTube has only gone downhill and become difficult for everyone. Amen. Thank you. High five, Jack. Yeah, it really puts me in a bummed out mood. I mean, of all things, to say that, you know, if you have an icon or something like that that could appeal to a child, I could be fined $42,000. Obviously, I've got a thumbprint up there. And I've started making a murderer all over the place because, you know, what's frustrating is I try to run a family program because YouTube doesn't want us to be too harsh. So instead of naming movies, stuff like, oh, they found a body, YouTube red flagged me and said, no, that's too harsh. You can't say that. So I was like, they found a what? All right, so, you know, I can't let you swear on here. I've got to moderate it. So if you say the F word or something like that, I got to moderate it and let you know that YouTube's going to, you know, cut you out and you won't be able to talk if you keep swearing. I got to be all family oriented. But if I'm family now, then I have to be made for kids. So it's like YouTube, I can't win for losing. I'm not kid friendly, but yet they want me to be more adult, but I can't be too adult. I've got to be in between. I got to be, I'm trying not to swear. If you're offended by swearing right now, then cover your ears. It's like they want me to be like Betty Crocker. I am so pissed at YouTube right now. Okay. Sorry guys. It's just, like I said, I got to figure out if I'm moving my channel onto a website. I talked to a lawyer. The lawyer says the best way, because it's on all levels. YouTube is only being used as an example. So they're going to be hitting, the FTC is going to be digging into more than YouTube. They're going to be hitting Twitch. They're going to be hitting all these places. The safest thing the lawyer says is go onto a site where the person pays $1 a month or something like that. So then they get access to everything on the library or everything in your channel, whatever. Because as soon as they put down that dime or whatever, it assures they're 18 years or older because of the pain thing and what you got to check. So I don't know. I don't know what I'm going to do, but by January 1st, I will have come to a conclusion. I would hate to lose YouTube, but there are plenty of platforms out there. Google does do analytics off of other things that we could use on the website. Plus, I usually use Twitter, and that's what seems to get everybody going. So we'll find out. But bear with me if you see changes on the channel. I'm trying to make sure that I am compliant with COPA, which is the Child Protective Act. And don't get me wrong, I am 100%, 1,000% for protecting children. However, if you're going to put it so that the child's programming is dead in the water, then when mom or dad hands over the phone like they always do, the only thing left is really adult crap out there. So how is that benefiting, children that were getting to watch educational programs before and now they won't? So, okay, let's get back onto suspects. Sorry, I'm on to this whole YouTube thing has me frustrated. Slayer Rock, 58 people love listening to you at this moment. Thank you. Graham says, I do think the pressure was applied to the others, just as you suggest, but I personally think that the timing was coincidence and opportunist. And you could be 100% right. Absolutely. It could have been one of those things where, they say when you look at certain events in history, the Titanic was one of them. It was a perfect still night. It was all odds against that ship. And as hard as it is to believe, that ocean turned into a mirror of the stars, and therefore they couldn't see that there was huge glaciers that were on the horizon because of the way that the temperature was the night, the way the wind was not moving at all. It became a perfect mirror and contributed to why it all happened. And it was all like the perfect coincidence, if you will. That could have happened here. Bobby really could be the suspect. And, maybe he was setting Scott Tadych up. What's up, Gretchen? What you need, baby? Come here. Maybe Bobby was after Teresa. I do find it hard that to really buy into a 19-year-old creating folders that say DNA and Teresa and Stephen. It just seems more like somebody that is as how do I put this? DNA back in 2005. I would think that you were somebody, Couché. I don't know. What if it... Okay, let's go there. Are you guys ready for Kratz on Kuss Road? That should have been the name of the video. We would have went viral. Kratz is on Kuss Road. Everybody went viral, right? Okay, let's see. We'll back up a little bit. I'm trying to keep up. I'm sorry. I'm talking so much and not reading. Okay, Jamie Van says, if the windows are shadow, where are the pictures of the RAV4 with the windows shot out? I've always been under the impression RAV4 was locked. Okay, Jamie, good questions. So Irvin Koenig was a witness back in 2005 of the RAV4, according to him. And before the 5th, he went on the 3rd on the nightly news live and told everybody on the news that he had seen that same unit that was in the missing posters. He had seen that on Highway 147 at where? The turnaround. Now, Irvin Koenig told them that there was a hole through the passenger's window and it looked like the driver's window was cracked as well. Okay? Now, he's the one that talked about this hole in the passenger. When he said passenger, I believe he said driver's passenger side. So not the window, but the driver's window on the side. Okay? So he's the one that reported the holes in the windows. Yet we don't see any holes in any of the windows on the RAV that's on the salvage yard. So what I was referring to before is if Scott Tadych had went out to Kuss Road, right, followed her there on some hustle shot. She thinks it's for a hustle shot. He gets out of his vehicle, walks over with the gun, not wanting to touch her because obviously it's a hit, a political hit. He pulls up Bobby Dassey's gun in Bobby Dassey's truck. He shoots the victim. He would have shot right through the window. It would have hit her right in the left of the head. Theory would be then she would fall sideways, and in doing so, her head would flop down. He would shoot again to ensure that she was dead, and that would be the second hit in the back of the head, which is execution style. That's when that vehicle somehow, whether Scott Tadych did it or he had Bobby help him at this point, because now if he really did do all this, if this really was how it happened, let's say, then that would put Bobby in a very precocious position because it'd be his truck, his gun, his computer, as well as his answering phone, his answering machine would all be playing against him, yet he would have nothing to do with any of it, I'm saying. It would be Scott Tadych as a political hired gunman or whatever. Then that vehicle that's on 147 would have been the real RAV, would have been obviously notified by Colburn, would have got rid of it with Link if he, they would have come up with a different RAV. And that's the one that didn't have the holes in it that you see the photographs of. So, Jamie, there are no photographs of this RAV with the window shut out. You're not going to see any that I know of, okay? We're just talking about Irvin Koenig and what he reported to the news that time. Now, just one other key note here. Once Irvin Koenig gets to trial, the police, the law enforcement, go back and try, in pre-trial, I should say, they go back to Irvin Koenig's house to interview him again, and he won't come to the door, and he won't talk to them. And the wife says, oh, he's working nights and he's sleeping, so I'm not going to wake him. And so the cops talk to the wife instead, and the wife says, well, after he went up there to that pre-trial, that's not the right color of a RAV. He thinks it's a different unit he saw. What do you want to bet that was the green RAV that he saw when he gets to pretrial? It's that blue one, the fake blue one sitting there. And he's like, that's not even what I saw. So to me, it just, I don't know. Irvin Koenig, to me, is the real witness of the real RAV because he remembers it being dark green. He described it as dark green. He's also the one that called with another guy, panicked because he said they were all at his house. They're coming to his house. And the other guy's like, I told you to keep your mouth shut. And him and this other guy are calling into dispatch, and they're totally panicked because they feel like they're being threatened and they don't know what to do because I told you to keep your mouth shut. You shouldn't have said nothing. See, this is what the older guy is telling Irvin Koenig because he's already talked about this RAV. So, okay. Ronald says, do you know if Blaine claimed Essay buffed in his barrel 1031? Buffed in his barrel. Burned, you meant. Burned in his barrel. Stephen claims he had not burned anything in his barrel for a couple weeks, so Gina says King Rats is a slick, slimy snake. Philippine Life says, I also believe in multiple involvement. Slay Rock says 58 people. Yeah. What are we at now? I don't even know. 61. That's cool. That's cool. You guys let me know. I've got about 15 more minutes I can do this. And then I got to get ready because now I'm working 2 jobs, so I'm gone a lot. But I do miss everyone so much. I'm just reading some of the comments to see if there's anything I missed. Bethany says, I've been looking at KK lately. Yeah, me too. Definitely. Yeah, Bethany's like, I made it for a live. Good deal. She finally made it for a live. BB says, you can't swear for shit. I miss BB. I miss everybody. Yeah, I do. Graham says, I think that because the real killer tried to spread the evidence and cover it up, the cops clearly tried to centralize it after the event and move it all towards Stephen. Yeah, Graham, I agree with you a lot on that. It is like the killer tried to spread the evidence out, and like, it's so stupid because if you find one piece, it's like making more places that you would find it. But if the killer in that, that almost leads me even more so to believe that it's a hired hit. Because if you're actually just a random killer that has gotten emotionally involved with this victim, you pick this moment to do it, you might more or less want to like get rid of it all at once, not make it where you're 10 times more likely to be found out as a killer because you've put it in so many different places that it's almost a guarantee it's going to get found. Whereas if you're a hired killer and your mission is to make sure the evidence gets found to be used against someone to frame them. So if there's this contract between the killer and law enforcement in the area, and the killer's told to make sure that the remains can be found to be able to be used for the purpose that they hired the killer, which is to plant and frame against this specific suspect, then it would make sense that you would find the remains spread out all over the place, because he's trying to make sure without any verbiage that they just naturally find this as if whatever, and then law enforcement, like Graham says, kind of centralizes it and moves the event up towards Stephen. Yeah, why was Kratz at the salvage yard? That's a great question, Graham. If the cops had planned it, why not leave it all close to Stephen from the start? Well, here's the thing. If you have a hired man that's living on the property so that you can control the family from within, that hit guy is not going to want that stuff right on top of him. The idea would be that he would have to, because he centralized himself and made himself quite obviously, in a normal investigation, a suspect. The intent then would be naturally to push the killing field as much further away, where it's some way you could not get caught, but yet the evidence could be handled in a way that it would come back on Stephen by the cops themselves. So, yeah, a lot of people are looking at KK as a suspect. I mean, think about it. How do we know? I mean, let's wipe the slate clean for a minute, okay? That computer, that hard drive that Zellner and law enforcement have that's got all Bobby's stuff on it, the only reason that they think that is because the reports, they don't still have that hard drive anymore. That hard drive may have come out of someone else's computer. I'm just saying. Back then, were they checking IP addresses to make sure that every single one of those things that were posted and searched and all that came from the exact same address? How do we know that the Dassey computer wasn't just normal kid crap and that it wasn't Ken Kratz's computer? Ken Kratz, were you really the one that looked up all that stuff on that computer? And then basically when it came to collecting the hard drive, you slipped your hard drive in place of that one? I'm just asking. Graham says, oh no, Gloria says, oh, I read that one. Okay, sorry guys. You wouldn't get a bullet hole in a side window. The glass is made to totally shatter. Yeah, but my son hit a rock through the mowing lawn, shot a rock through the side of the van. It shattered. I'm sorry. But it was like the bottom part was still rigidy and cut and all that and looked all jaggedy. I don't know. It was a mess. It was glass everywhere, though. But you might be right. That could be, I guess, proof that you wouldn't get a hole like you're saying Irvin Conan was explaining. You wouldn't see that. Interesting. That's a good point. Excuse me. I'm sorry. It's really dry in here and warm. And I didn't get any sweet tea. Carly's Darwin claimed Blaine saw S.A. burn in his barrel. I don't know who Carl's Darwin is. It the kid that was related to the guy that owned the tavern, Campion? Was that his kid or his nephew or something, Ronald? I'm not sure. Hey, I see TXR 250R is here. Chiming in late, the plate bracket from Toyota only used upper bolt holes, not bottom bolt holes. The bumper doesn't have any spot where it would have been bolted either. Toyota factory bracket mounted plates to the top of the plate, not the bottom. Yeah, that's my point, you guys. When you look at that plate, that is the front plate I showed you guys in the news. And it's not that it's got 4 holes in it that bother me, because I could care less about 4 holes in it. But when it's showing the patina of the rusty bolt still on the actual plate where it was attached, and yet I can't find a way to attach that plate to the front of the RAV. To me, it's proof. I mean, that's what's got me locked in, that there is a different vehicle. And I think that's why it was off the RAV in the first place. I think they're switching it up. Bethany says that would explain why so many cops would stick their neck out to covering up the real evidence. It's very perplexing because there were several people who could have done it. And TRX says, I don't think the cops hired anyone. It's way too risky. I think if Ellie had to do anything with this, they did it themselves. Not unless it's someone very, very, very trustworthy not to make a mistake. Interesting thought, though. That's a good point. I mean, if you'll shoot your own brother in the head, I don't know, guys. That's a good point. Let's see. Yeah, Jamie says if the windows were shut out, the glass wouldn't have exploded the windows. I don't know. I know when the rock hit it, it broke the whole top half, shattered it, glass all in the van. But the bottom half was still like jagged pieces that we could literally just pull out. So it was kind of a mix. It was kind of mixed. Graham says, I'd be proper pissed off if I hired someone and they had to move the evidence myself afterwards. That's a good point too. KK is very full of himself. Everyone should watch his interview with that female comedian. KK surely implicates himself. I agree, Bethany. I just can't watch Kratz anymore. I can't. If you had to list out the criteria for a killer, right? That's all I gotta say. It matches. How would the police know that TH was going there that day? Well, TRX, I think that's pretty simple actually, because when you've got DOJ, Kathy Williford running the route prior to Teresa, and then Teresa gets that route, it does imply to me, as well as many others have belief, as well as I do, belief that Stephen's phones were being tapped anyway, whether it was an illegal wiretap or not. I truly do believe they were listening in and they were paying attention to Stephen. We had $36 million on the line. Ronald says, I definitely agree the hard drive was more likely from KK than Dassey. I just feel like they are, think about it. Bobby Dassey, if he isn't guilty, if he really is innocent, and if it really is KK's hard drive, and if somebody like Scott really did use Bobby's truck and gun, it could really explain a lot of what's going on with Bobby. On the other side of the coin, if he really is the killer, I don't know. We just need more info. I think of Stephen and everybody and their brother back in 1985 throwing him under the bus and saying he's guilty no matter what, off of media hype, off of circumstantial evidence. And I worry that another Avery or Dassey could possibly be thrown under the wheels of this bus. So I keep holding off in protecting Bobby a little bit, because if perchance that they were to insure and blackmail Bobby, okay, let's be honest. It's highly probable with Bobby's age he was dealing drugs. It's probable at his age that he was dealing marijuana, which in Wisconsin at that time, in 2005, was felony if you had so much on you. They would have had Bobby by the nuts, literally, and said, hey, you're either an accomplice or you're our star witness. And I'll tell you what we got for you being the main suspect instead of Stephen. We've got problems with your truck. We've got problems with possibly your gun because Scott's trying to sell it. We've got this CD right here that shows that you're looking up bad stuff. And it wouldn't have mattered what Bobby said. His boat was sunk at 19 years old at that point. And don't even say Ellie wouldn't do that, because look what they did to Brendan. I think they screwed over Bobby, and I think possibly they may have blackmailed him. I just can't rule it out yet. I'm not saying he's not the killer, but I'm not saying he is the killer. I'm on the fence. I'm just saying I can't swing all the way and say Bobby's guilty. I'm going to gun for Bobby when he could have been a victim too, just like Stephen was in 1985. Okay. Jack Anderson says, is the only windshield that will... Wait. Jack Anderson says, 120 of 5,000. Okay. It is only the windshield that will pierce the pane before it is laminated. Side window will splinter because it is tempered glass. It is only the windshield that will pierce the pane before it's laminated. Side windows... Okay, I'm not sure. Jack Anderson also says, is only the windshield that will pierce the pane before it is laminated. Side windows will splinter. Not sure. Oh, I remember Charles Darwin. Yes, Ronald. He is a guilt or troll. Probably. Hey, I accused him of being King Kratz a year ago. Yep. Jack Anderson. Yep, I read that. Bethany, unless it was transferred from a previous vehicle she owned. See, Beth, that's the thing, is they've made this huge thing about Teresa not owning another vehicle. This was her first vehicle. She'd bought it herself, and and she'd had it, and she'd got it at auction, so she couldn't have transferred the plates, right? Because it's her first vehicle. Slayer rocks. Those photos of the burn pit were a joke. No depth to it, especially if it was going to have flames above the building, then to excavate it with the machinery. They didn't even try to make it credible. Yeah, they didn't even... I mean, in the middle of the crime scene, there's a case of bottled water where they would have had to walk all across the place where this victim allegedly was her last place of resting. They would have had to dishonor that, as well as contaminate the crime scene to place an entire case of bottled water right in the middle of the pit, right? Bethany says KK consistently claims this alibi, yet we have never heard him tell it. Why? Yeah, the only alibi Ken Kratz has provided is the alibi when he was in a band. Ugh. Gina says, what about the scratches on Bobby Dassey's back? That's true. It does look like he has scratches, and we've even had an expert say those from Zellner's team that says those do not look or fit, that is a dog, that those fit a human hand. That's true. Bethany says, I think Zellner knows who did it and is waiting to reveal it and has only implicated suspects. She's going to be ruled out. I do too. Yeah, they gave her new plates, Bethany. All right, guys. Is there anything else you guys want to talk about? Do you want to talk about different suspects on Kuss yet, or do you guys want to call it a night? It's 9:29. I'm kind of worn out. I do have to get up for work, so I think we'll hit this one more comment here. I want to thank you all for joining me. I really do appreciate it. I love being able to talk to you guys. As far as YouTube, there's going to be a lot of changes. There's going to be a massive amount of changes. I'm not even sure if YouTube will survive it all. I'm sure they will. But if they don't, or if I chicken out on the $42,000 fine, which I don't want to get, I will figure out a way to upload my videos. Let me know. Hit me up and let me know if I do put it down, like the lawyer's saying, where it could be like, I could either go with Patreon, where you would be a member there, and then you'd have access to all the videos, or to keep it more open to a public setting, I can put my videos on a platform such as the library was on, where you'd pay like $1 a month, and it'd get you in the door, and you could watch anything you wanted and access all of the stuff behind the scenes. So that's what the lawyer has suggested, is if we can do something like that, then we can prove that it's not children that are watching it, and it protects us from the FTC accusing us of violating the COPA law, which is the child protective law that's out there. And it's a huge, huge deal, I will tell you that. All of us that are making the movies out here, the videos, are facing tremendous decisions. So let me know what you guys want to do. All right. I think Zelda knows who did it. Yep, we saw that one. Okay. TRX. Here we go. Who was the cop who dragged the boy 200 feet? Maybe that boy saw something happen and the cop deliberately ran him over. Wasn't that Bushman? Didn't Bushman have some part of the investigate Kuss Road? So we don't know who the person was that hit Ricky Hochstetler. Unfortunately, it is allegedly it was Robert Herman that owns the salvage yard, but I've always believed that it was Kusurek, who was the sheriff at the time. But it's all suspicion and speculation because we don't know. It was never proven. Those pieces of evidence disappeared as well. But yes, Bushman was overseeing the investigation, and he was the first one to respond to that scene as well. Martha says, Ronald D., I call him the missing link or Kenny. He gets crazy. And then Slayer Rock says, 3:30 night all. Love you much, guys. Love your videos, Gloria says. Thank you, Gloria. I would to hear about Kuss Road just to see what people think about it. And Ronald Case says, or Cass, I didn't think Blaine claimed SA burned in his barrel as Charles Darwin claimed. Do you know? No, I've never heard Blaine say that at all. I have not. And on that note, much love, you guys. I appreciate everything that you guys do when you're sharing everything. I don't care whose video it is. I don't care what it is, as long as it's positive. In showing the wrongful conviction of Stephen and Brendan. I appreciate it so much. I am so frustrated by this case at times, and it helps to be able to talk to you guys. So have a wonderful night. Love you much. Good night. Or maybe not. Arg.